right place. Yes, we are gonna do some tips, some help, maybe, hopefully, if you have some back pain. Um, the back is very long, so back pain can mean a lot of things. Lots of muscles, bones, organs can affect. It can be for a number of reasons in terms of posture. So we are putting here a lot of things in the same basket. But let's say one of the things that I have found when I have back issues or back pain, that mobilizing, soft mobilization, built on top of a meditation or a gym practice, really helps. One thing that happens when you have back pain is so weakening. It's a core pain, is not an external or peripheric injury, so it makes you feel very fearful of movement, and that is for a reason. For the first few days, depending on how intense or how severe the injury is, can be a little longer. But once this first wave passes, in my experience, the body might still maintain some of the fear and tell you that you don't want to move and you walk like this, a little bit like a robot. But actually, at certain point, you gotta start giving it a little bit of motion, a little bit of mobility. Um, I say it's good if you build this on top of a meditation practice, because external exercises without the awareness of how the body moves and how everything feels not only can lead to worsening of the injury, but in any case it can maybe not help, because some of the reasons why our back hurts can be structural alignment, postural alignment habits that we have carried for many years. And to understand them, even if it is not verbally or anatomically, to understand them experientially and see in which way you can or modify, transcend the habit to one that feels better and is more helpful for your body, takes attention, takes awareness. And also, when you're going to activate your body, when you're activating muscles and you're doing it in detail, isolating, or even if it's not precise isolation like a dancer, but with intense attention, it is much easier if your body is relaxed, if there is not a pre-existing layer of hard superficial tension. So a shavasana, a meditation before, that's what I did. Before class I did a nice shavasana. It's going to help you find that delicacy in the movement. Yeah? Okay. We're going to start peripherically. So we're going to start from the neck. If you have pain in your back, low, middle, or upper back, it doesn't matter. All the spine is connected. So the way you feel in some part of your spine might be affected by everything else. So we're going to start peripherically. We're going to take the two ends of the spine and start from there. So maybe with the neck first, we release the head forward. You might use a mat. I'm going to do it on the floor today, at least as long as I can. I'm always relating to the floor through my feet. It can be still, it can be completely still, completely solid, but when you have back pain, that can be a bit of an issue. So a little pendular movement, shifting weight from foot to foot and simultaneously being attentive of how the weight travels to the hip. And then we drop the head towards the left shoulder. I drop the head, but I'm still gazing at you. And you see this right shoulder, as the head tilts to the left. Let me see on the picture, it leans up a little. So I'm going to try to ground it. If you have a back injury that makes it complicated to stand, you can do this practice sitting, even sitting on a chair, at least this first part. Then we let the head fall down and move it towards the right shoulder. Again, ground the left shoulder, feel like you're gazing forward. And maybe I don't speak too much about breathing today, but as a practitioner, yeah, as you start working with your body bit by bit, you start welcoming a widening of the breath. And then maybe we go for a little bit of circling or half circling. Do it on your own. I'm doing it very slowly because I'm taking care of a certain quality and continuity of the movement. If you're very skillful and it feels like you can move faster, but also with the neck, it's kind of delicate, and it comes to a point in life that almost all of us feel that fragility. Maybe you can try to do a full circle going through the back, and then the same circle changing direction. And then I'm going to play a little bit with smaller movements. One thing I find often with the yoga practice, at least mainstream yoga practice, is that it's very concerned with extremes. So if I do a neck roll, I'm going to do the biggest I can do, yeah? But the body relaxes very much when you pay attention to simple, easy movements where there is hardly any resistance and you kind of bathe in the feeling of ease. And here you can maybe feel, I don't know, everybody's different, that feels a little easier to go to the left and to go to the right. Often when you go very extreme, you are going to feel just the deepest stretch, but you miss a little bit of intermediate information. Maybe improvise a little, look over the left shoulder, look over the right shoulder, drop the head again. Maybe you want to add a little bit of stretching, you get your hands on top of the head and you pull a little stronger, adding to the first round of lengthening. And if you bring it towards the left shoulder, you can pull with the left hand overhead. You can lower the right hand arm a bit more actively away. And see, you don't need to do exactly what I'm doing. Just take the theme. You're working attentively, carefully, with attention, with a different range of motion in your neck. And you're trying to move with ease, and when you explore the edges, the limits, I was going to say with love, I'll say with love. Love for your body. And release. Good. And we move to the shoulders. Let's start one by one. I have a tendency or a habit of putting the opposite hand close to the shoulder. I like the way I feel the muscle layers moving. And it also helps me a little bit to feel the isolation between the shoulder and the rest of the body. So you can start with small movements, not even a pattern movement. Just move your shoulder back and move it forward, and then maybe lift it, and then ground it, and then rotate it externally so your palm points forward, and then rotate it internally so it points backwards. And then building with these basic pillars of movement, in small range, improvise a little. The rest of the arm, if it is included, if you include a little bit the elbow or the wrist, to make it a little pretty. It's nice, but try to feel the movement of the shoulder as isolated as possible. And then from here you can exaggerate a little. We take the shoulder forward, we're taking the arm forward, and then as if you were pulling from something, you bring the shoulder backwards. And then from here you bring the arm up, shoulder still down. Let's see if I can straighten the elbow. And then we lift the shoulder to the ear. We release the arm to the side and we lower the shoulder. And then we open the arm, the shoulder, so the hand is almost pointing backwards. And then from there, wrist, elbow, and finally the shoulder rotated. All this much. So even though you're isolating the work on the shoulder, think that through connective tissue and muscle ligaments, you're somehow starting to warm up the upper part of your spine. Then improvise a little. And I'm using a quality of movement that is a little slow, attentive, kind of continuous. Of course, you can use momentum and do bigger movements and move in a more flappy way, or you can use a lot of power. There's different qualities of movement that you can also investigate. For now, for this session, I'm going to use continuous, careful, present, kind of slow movement, not much of any other quality, but exploring the qualities can be also part of your healing process. And then we do the other side. So, left shoulder. First a little up, then down. This one doesn't want to go down, yeah? I'm going to do this again, interesting. A little up, as if you bring your shoulder to the ear, and then down. You see, by trying to maintain the continuity of movement, you can also feel where your body likes to hold. So sometimes we observe inner tension in a yin still practice, just breathing, but sometimes you can do it through movement. Let's bring it back, and let's bring it forward. And let's rotate it open, externally, and internally, as if you wanted the front of the shoulder to cover your fingers here. And then we open it again and we bring the arm up. And then here we continue a little and we lift the shoulder. And then we ground it again and we open. Let's again open from the shoulder and then we continue it through the arm, the elbow, and if you want, rotate also the wrists backward. And then you can start from the wrists, the elbow, and then you will feel the isolation of the shoulder rotate, clack, forward. And then once more, bring the arm forward, pull, a little stronger forward, as if you were picking up something, bring it backwards, as if you wanted to touch the wall behind you with your shoulder. And then play a little bit with a sense of improvisation, as if you were trying to know your shoulder. Imagine you go to school and they tell you, how can your shoulder move? And you go like, oh, let me see. Yeah, like that. And as I said before, if beauty wants to be part of the equation, if nobody's looking, only me, yeah, you can make it pretty, why not? But attention to movement, not the way it looks, is what is important. And then maybe we can put both together. We lift them up, we bring them back, and as if the elbows were gonna touch your back. We lift them up, we open, and as if the elbows were gonna touch your back. If you are tired of standing the whole time, you can bend your knees a little, or at least variate the position of the legs. Walk a little, or shift the weight a little, like I was doing in the beginning. Maybe include a little bigger flapping of your wings. So I'm starting to include a bigger portion of the upper spine. Maybe even bring your arms up and think that you are, it's not going to happen, but think that you are trying to touch your hands behind you. And then when you go forward, be generous in the rounding of the upper back. And then up and forward. and forward. And if you want to add to this your old exercises from the swimming pool and you want to do a little bit of crawl forward, yeah, be attentive of the way the shoulder moves. So when I bring it down here, I'm opening the shoulder, yeah, that would be the way to swim, and then I'm turning it forward as it goes on the air. Or you can do the backstroke. And as you see, if you look at me, there's a little movement already around the hips. As the movement in the shoulders becomes a little bigger, even if I'm trying to stand still, it's going to start warming up my hips from the upper movement. We can do this that we like also very much, where I round. Now I'm going to include a bit lower in the spine. So I'm going to round my whole back, very careful, cross my arms in front of me, and then open like a big bird flapping the wings, and go for a little, almost like a feeling of back bend. So we go round. If you want, let the head go, and then here, open. Imagine you're gonna hug the world, and round. Wouldn't that be nice, eh? Open, and round, maybe even let the head fall down. This little bending of the knees, if it happens to you, I was working with Yomi, my daughter, the other day. She had some pain in the ankle and her knee tends to fall in. And I have had to correct that in myself as well. Some people, the knees fall out. That is going to affect also how you feel in the lower back. So these times when you are standing, even if you're doing something further up, just the feeling that when you bend your knees in a standing position with parallel feet, the knees, as they bend, they follow the line of the toes forward. Yeah. And then maybe we add a little bit of twisting, at least just marking. When you have pain in the back, twisting is difficult. So let's do it very slowly. So with the arms open, I'm going to take my right arm towards the left. And as if it was pushing my left arm backwards. And then I'm going to bring the arm towards the right. Yeah. I'm stealing from Tai Chi now. I had a teacher that said, if I like it, I'll steal it. So, if you don't want to do a proper pattern movement, yeah, just think of moving towards the right and moving towards the left. Think at the end the technique, it doesn't really matter. Maybe you are borrowing here from Kundalini Yoga. Just slow it down a little and move your spine. Look for the twist in movement and do it first very slowly. And then eventually we're going to try to isolate a bit more. Now I'm not being very picky and my hips are moving from side to side. I'm not going into a deep twist. But the truth is that the lower spine doesn't like to twist. So in my movement, more, I'm going to try to keep the hips steady, facing towards you, towards the screen. Yeah? And just move my upper body. I can do this without including the arms, but the back will like if your whole body is moving. Yeah? Something like that. You can loosen up a little, open the feet a little, and then we're going to look up to the right, bend the knees when we go through center, and look up to the left. If you are in pain, do the first ones very gently, very gently. If you see me from profile, I'm not bending my back, I'm keeping it steady. And then here you can work with a little bit of momentum if you want. Go to the left, go to the right, bend the knees in between. Yeah? In surfing, we do a little bit of this, right? We go to the right, we go to the middle for bottom turn, for top turn. Yeah. So if you're a surfer, use your surfing movements. Go through center, and before we know it, we're including the hips. Yeah. We went through the neck, the shoulders, the upper spine. We twisted a little bit. Well, it's been about 20 minutes, and now we landed on the hips. Yeah, we're gonna go there. I'm going too fast, maybe? No, I don't think so. Okay, so sink the weight to the right hip. Yeah, sticking it to the right and out. And then back and out. This leg with the knee bent is not carrying weight. The one standing, the one straight is carrying weight. If you want a point of reference, keep your hands on your waist and we go to one side, a little bit, as if you were doing, how do you call it? A one-way walk without moving. When we go to one side, now we're going in a triangular movement. We go up and we go down, and we go up and down to the right, and up center and down to the left. Now, next time that you go to the right, maybe add a little rotation around the hip. So you reach to the end and your body says, this is the maximum. Okay, play a little bit with the maximum and go to center. So we round the movement a little. We go to the left. When we get there, we move a little with the weight on the left hip and we come back to center. Once again to the right, a couple of half circles and to center, and to the left, a couple of back circles and to center. Simply shift the weight to the right hip, and now similar like we did with the neck, but smaller. Not just the very edge of the movement. You can even put the two hands. See, my left foot is just supporting the balance. I don't have weight on it. And around the right hip, shifting weight on the right foot. We're going to move in circles. Change the direction of the circles. Maybe even make them, when you're working with nerve pain, sometimes to find a relief or to find a point where you feel like your hips or your pelvis align, you have to do very small movements. Sometimes you need to find like a blind area that somehow is contracted or tense, and we move to the other side. So, from the bigger circles or half circles, we go to smaller ones. And by shifting weight on the left foot, we experiment with different positions, small positions, intermediate positions, not the big ones, on the right, on the left hip in this case. And then from here, if you want, you can go for a full circle, an aerobics exercise circle back, and then you go around. If the back hurts, experiment with bending your knees. Alternatively, you can keep the knees very kind of the same, but maybe your back requires a little bit of movement, so you can bend one of the knee before the other one. Just experiment a little bit with different patterns of movement. So although you are doing an exercise, the exercise is not repetitions of a particular movement. The exercise is exploring the quality of movement and the way it makes you feel in the back, looking for a sense of ease at certain point. And if nothing else, for creating that sense of trust in the lower back. We go back to our salsa walk, And from here, if you have a bit of floor, what I would do in my private practice, personal practice, my own personal practice, would be to start a little bit of a walking meditation. And not necessarily just walking. So for now, maybe you don't need to look at me, just take a few steps, place the weight on one of the feet, and feel how you push weight from the other foot to the next one. And it doesn't matter if you're walking straight or if you're just turning direction, the way you land weight, the way you bend the knee, the way you lift the other foot, do a little circle with the hips. So I'm not exploring the art of walking that I'm going to use later in the streets. What I'm using is shifting weight from foot to foot in not complicated patterns, but not necessarily predictable or repetitive ones, keeping my back straight and carrying the position of my gaze from place to place with my feet. Once again, the way it looks is not important. The precision of the step, the connection with the foot, the shift of the weight. When you have your 2 feet aligned, the way you're transferring weight to them, do you feel the phone position or do you feel the shoulder fallen position? How do you need to activate your body to go into a straight position, lifting from the base of the neck or the skull, maintaining the back aligned? So, standing, walking, bending the knees, getting a little lower towards a squatting position, bringing the hips a little lower. And don't forget that we did a warm-up of the upper part of the body. So once again, if you want to continue with that and move the upper part of the body as well, it looks pretty. And now I'm getting a little deeper in the hips. If you see, I have separated the feet more, and I'm exploring, let's say, the bottom of my hip rotation here. Further down I can go. So instead of going all to the bottom, I'm going to go a little higher, and I'm going to move like I did before, shifting weight from leg to leg, like if my pelvis was a pendulum, shifting it from place to place. Maybe you still want to move the feet and you inhabit a different position, just shifting your gravity center from place to place. The more connected we are with that process, the easier it's going to be later on walking. The easier it's going to feel through the body. So I go a little lower, never going into a round position, at least not yet. And now I'm going to play with a higher degree of improvisation. So I'm going to put my body in slightly different positions and shift with the weight. I like to go low because I feel that's a nice warm-up for the hips. But if that hurts, if you feel that your hips don't give you enough space, you can do it a little higher. It doesn't need to be so extreme. I really appreciate the intermediate movements, but play a little bit with different patterns of step. Imagine for this one that you couldn't move your neck and you just have to shift gaze from side to side. And imagine you want to go higher and then you want to go lower, but without bending your back to pick up something from the floor. So you keep your back straight and you go lower, and then you stand up again. And then again you go, let's say, to the right, and you shift to the left, take a few steps, down, I don't know, improvise, yeah? Move a little. So now, I don't know you, but bit by bit, your hips are warmer, shoulders are warmer, neck is warmer, your body is warmer. I don't know, I'm sweating a little bit. We're gonna go a little lower even. We still have not worked really any rounding of the back or any deep stretch. We're just playing with different movements. So now I'm gonna go to the floor, but I'm gonna use 3 or 4 places of contact. Now if you're in acute pain, this can be a little tricky. But if you're in the beginning, this starts to feel a little easier. So you can start with 2 points and shifting weight from one foot or one leg to the other one. But if you can reach to the hands to the floor, we're going to do the same improvisation exercises we did before with now 4 points of contact. And we're going to shift weight from place to place. We're going to shift gaze from side to side. And we're going to do it without rounding the back, or at least too much. Almost the whole time keeping the back straight. If you want, unfortunately you don't have a wooden floor, but if you want, if you have a mat or a carpet and you want to start using your knees on the floor, that can help. Or let's say can help. It's going to relieve a little bit your hips from the tension of having to open, and now you're going to have not 4, but 6 different places of contact on the floor. And see if at any point you can come up with this. So the relationship to the floor does not separate you from coming up. So it doesn't feel different. I think I see people who forget to relate to the floor. They end up tendency to have problems in the back because the feet stop feeling and they stop adapting the step. We punish them inside high heels, or we punish them on top of concrete in very repetitive walking, and then that relationship, we never touch the floor, and then that relationship with the ground disappears. But the relationship with the ground is the way we carry our gravity. It's very important. So you go up and down. Yeah, you can do it. All this is improvised. You can make your own pattern of movement. Good. There's so much more like this that you could do, but let's say now at least we have a sense of warmth in the back. We have a sense of the outer layers of the back being a little softer. Yeah? Okay. Let's do a bit of precision work. If you have a block or a book, fat book, this can help. So we're gonna lie down on the floor. Am I still on flat? Yes. And we're gonna put the block in between the legs. And first, I'm just gonna get used to having the minimum tension between the legs to maintain the block in place. Once I do that, actually for me, it's better to block flat. You have, depends how long or how wide your hips are, I feel better on the narrow end. When you look at your legs, more or less, see that you have the same height underneath. This is always an issue for me. I'm a little crooked in the hips. And we're gonna put the hands on the floor with the palms down for stability. Here, so you see me better. And then we're gonna fall a little to the left, very little, and then come back to center. And fall a little to the right, very little, and come back to center. And if the floor is a little softer than mine, start also to feel the texture of the ground under you, and you're using it for a little massage on the lower back. Very subtle. If you have pain anywhere in the back, you can even do it smaller, just a little bit. And now we're going to round the movement like we did before. So when I come on one side, then I'm going to bring the knees a little closer to my head. And then I'm going to go down to center and then to the left and lift a little bit the knees towards my head. And then round and to center. Again, right, lift a little. Come to center and rest your feet. So as you felt, all this is, I'm not thinking only in strengthening, I'm also thinking in the sense of stability. That's why the movement goes very slow and you don't need to do many repetitions of very heavy, strong movements. You want to have these little ones, a few repetitions, and do it very careful with a lot of attention to the movement pattern and what it does to the spine and what kind of sensations it creates. Then with the hands still on the floor and the block still between the legs, I'm going to lift the tailbone. And then I'm going to push down. I push down the sacrum. I keep pushing down. I keep pushing down. And it's almost like I drag it up towards my head, lifting the belly. And then I drop and the tailbone lifts again. So I'm basically doing this with my sacrum. Just this. Now when I push it down, if I keep dragging, I'm going to create a little hole under my lower back, yes? You feel that? A little bigger. So now we lift the sacrum and maybe a couple of vertebrae. And then we bring it down, we pull back. When you pull back, you will see your chin moving towards your chest. And then I lift. And every time you lift, bit by bit, you're lifting a little bit more portion of your spine, kind of like section by section. No hurry. No hurry. It's a little tricky when you're on this part to keep things for as long as I would do them, because at a certain point I always feel maybe it's a little boring to look at. Yeah? But this kind of thing, you can get lost in it and spend some 10 minutes just moving bit by bit. See how it includes, how the movement includes in the breath, how do they match together. When you start lifting different portions, at a certain point, if you're dealing with pain, you might hit the portion that hurts, and there you're going to see within the pain what is the degree of movement. You're not triggering, you're not irritating it. You're exploring with a lot of care and moving very slowly. So moving towards pain like this, unless is what I said before, the first couple of days when you're really severely injured, is always beneficial. The body receives this sense of, it's almost like hope in a way, yeah? Because you feel, every injury I have had in my life, it doesn't matter that it's happened before. At a certain point in the middle of the injury, you feel like it's never gonna go away. So your body needs to restore a bit of the self-confidence on the fact that it can move. Okay, so this could go on for a long time. Now I'm going to get to the upper part of the exercise. I'm going to open my shoulders a little bit underneath. If you want, you can bring your hands underneath if that feels comfortable. I'm going to keep them on the floor because I'm not going to go all the way up to my full lift of the hips. I'm going to stay conservative. The reason for this is because rather than go to the top of the stretch, what I'm trying to pay attention now, even through the gaze, is if the right hip and the left hip lift at the same time. Or on the shoulders, if I feel equally weighted on the right and the left shoulder. Sometimes this is very apparent. You can see it in me, or sometimes when I teach a class in other people, they lift very much from one side. One part of the back is really contracted, shorter, not because it is short, but because it has become short. If all this feels good, and at the top, there is no pain, and you feel like going into a deeper stretch, like a proper yoga posture, let's say, and open the shoulders, and go deeper, but still holding the block, and give the posture a little bit of breathing, then yeah, if you want. Then we take the block out, release the feet from the floor. Without the block, there's a little bit more freedom, but you can see how the hips slide away from each other a little when you move to the sides. We keep the slide to a minimum. And then we bring the knees towards the hands. Or even if you reach inside the frame of the arms. And we're going to rest them for a little bit. I could do this in a very relaxed way, but since we are dealing with pain today, we're going to be a bit more precise. So the inner edges of the feet are going to be touching each other. The knees are going to be at the same distance from the hips. And I'm going to rest my legs inside the frame of my arms. And then I'm going to wait here a little bit. Mind you, it's hard to predict. Sometimes when you have back pain, it hurts when you bend forward. Sometimes when you have back pain, it hurts when you bend backwards. Sometimes in a twist. Sometimes sitting, sometimes standing. Sometimes goes down the leg, sometimes in the front, sometimes in the back. So I repeat, we're putting here a big subject composed from many different injuries and different problems into a practice that, let's say, maybe some sections work with. That's the best I can. Yeah? And now, from here, we're going to do a soft twist. We're going to let the legs fall to the right. So, here you have two possibilities. Either you do a very soft twist. Now I just put the block under my legs to not let them fall too much. And the shoulder is standing on the floor. This is really easy on the left side of my body. I have a little extra length here, so I'm going to focus in how my breath moves the area. But if you want to go a little deeper, if there is less pain, then maybe get the block again. So when you fall to the right, the left hip comes with you and the lower back doesn't twist. So you force the twist in the middle of the spine. Now, this is a deeper twist. The shoulder is a little hanging and the sensations in the body are more intense. So it might depend on which stage in your injury you are. Now, once you're in this position, give it a few breaths. And you don't need to, but I usually like the hand as a point of reference, at least for part of the duration of the time that I'm here. Relax your neck. Not only in the movement part, but in the more breathing relaxation part, or to the middle. Remember your spine, it's all together from the neck down to the hips. So if you are working with your sacrum, with your lower back, you don't want to lose attention from the sensations in your neck. So again, either a very soft twist, just barely marking, so you can give the right hip, the right side of the lower back, right kidney, a little bit of breath for days where you're in a lot of pain. Or if you're in pain and you want to align your body and you want to feel tendencies, but you still have space, we squeeze. When we get over the left hip, the right hip comes with us. I force a much deeper twist in the middle of the spine, but this area, I kind of keep it intact, the lower spine. Right shoulder, maybe for some of us, hovers a little bit over the floor. Well, this is great. If you can hook that right arm onto something, oh. somehow the left hand, I guess you can relax it. For me, it has always felt nice to have a point of reference between the hand and the leg. It helps you. I see sometimes people with really long legs, it's just the legs fall. Not my case. And like we did before, as a base, this is a still work, yeah? It's just still and breathing. So the work is internal with the movement of the breath. But like we did before, you get to the end of the position and maybe you have a little bit of a floating movement. In this case, I'm pushing my hips away from my head a little. Then maybe you thrust forward a bit or you send your sacrum back. Unless somebody is looking at you directly, they wouldn't see. It's a very small movement, very careful, just exploring within the stretch. If that is not an end position, if you can move a little bit around it. Good. We remove the block, come to center, rest your hands on the belly for a little bit. One hand, we're going to lift the feet off the floor. And we're going to put one hand in front of the left knee and the other hand behind, under and on top. Left knee and right knee. So the left knee is going to, the left leg is going to push away and the right leg is going to push towards me. We're going to switch layer. Besides, so the arms are resisting. Besides aligning the pelvis, if you maintain kind of steady, similar, isolated strength in the push, you will discover, let's change, that very likely one of the legs is stronger than the other one. And maybe if you are in a moment of pain, one of the pushes, one of the pulls either alleviates or increases the pain. So in that case, you do it very gently. Try to keep your back straight, your shoulders grounded, your neck straight. Start pushing first with one leg, let's say this one, in my case the left one away, and then start pushing with the right one back, keeping the right shoulder on the floor. Maintain for a few seconds while still breathing naturally, deeply. And then change. Right hand under the right knee, left hand over the left knee. I start pushing with my right knee away and I start pulling with my left one back. I align my spine, I ground my lower back and I feel the line of my spine. And I release and I let the knees fall to the sides. Hands go to the hips and I give the hips movement with the breath. You want to feel not only that the breath moves the area, but the quality of the breath is nurturing. Sometimes when you have pain, all your mind does is poke at the pain, get rid of it, get rid of it. And that can excite the pain more because, yeah, like everybody under threat, you harden, you perpetuate yourself, right? So the breath is not just generous in the movement that it creates and in its length and its slow rhythm, but the quality, the feeling of the breath, like you care, not like you wanna get rid of it, but like you wanna get to know it. Then we bring the legs together. All this because I'm thinking of a pain session. I keep everything a little shorter. We do everything a little softer. Think that you are approaching your pain almost as if you're asking for permission, encouraging, but asking for permission, like, can I please move? Can you let me? And then we would finish this on a savasana practice. But if you are in pain, maybe leaning to one side is a better choice. Let's do it there. It makes me feel a little bit embarrassed to talk from this position. So you stay there and let me sit up a little. The camera is very high today. So let me go through what we did. You stay in that crouching position. Just breathe into your belly. It can be sitting, it can be standing like we did today. But I think I'm going to mobilize my spine. Start from the top. Igor, shut up. Before meditation, relaxation, savasana, yin, breathing, do not start moving with a little unfolding before, yeah? Yes, important. Then we start with the movement. So the movement, I think of my back, my spine, and I start from the periphery. So in this case, we started with the neck, stretching, moving big, stretching big, but also moving small, finding the details, how the head attaches to the neck, how the neck attaches to the shoulder, not in anatomical pictures, but in the way it feels. Then we go to the shoulders. And we just explore the richness. The shoulder is very rich, it can move in many different ways. So we think the basic movements, very simple, rotations, lifts, ground, forward, backward, something like that. And then with that, you start playing and generating movement. You can do predictable movement, like circles or things like that, or you can do improvised movement. As you move your shoulders more and more, you start to include your upper spine. So the movement becomes a little bigger, and somehow you think of your rib cage, your collarbones, even your sternum in the front, but thinking your shoulder blades, your upper back, and how the last section of the spine before the neck starts to collaborate in the movement. From there, we started to play with very soft twists, and then we moved down to the hips. The access into the hip was something that you can use every day. Standing, yeah, you can do it when you're waiting in line, you can do it when you're walking, you can do it when you're doing your dishes or cooking. Shift to one hip, shift to the other one, round the movement, bend your knees, experiment with the depth that your hips allow you. Shift to the right, shift to the left. If you are on a yoga mat and you want to throw there some standing positions, some trikonasanas or parvakonasanas that you feel comfortable with, great. And then what I did in this practice is use that movement pattern on the hips into translational movement. Say walking, how you put weight on your feet, how you shift weight from foot to other, how you change direction. And what I did there was more of an improvised sequence, not so much the street walk, but using the floor, just placing the feet in different ways, moving the body in different directions, slowly with attention, always the corner of the eye, thinking on how is my pain feeling on my back. Later on, we started to go down to the floor, using hands first, using knees after, changing direction, going up, going down, moving around the area that we have in different movements, different movement patterns. Easy, not necessarily challenging or triggering the pain. If this part was difficult, let's say you are of age or you are a bit limited in your body, just skip it and instead you do a sitting practice where you move around your spine, like so often in yoga practice. Yeah? Then I did a little bit of floor work on the back, counting that you are in a situation that soft back bending is possible. But I did it very carefully. First, just lifting the tailbone, then keep moving there, just seeing how much your back bend wants to penetrate in your body. And then at the end, kept it for a bit, release it down, did the work with the block, right, left, twist, a little bit of breathing at the end, relax the hips, turn to one side. And I realized that this is recorded, so you just can go back and you don't need to listen to all this explanation. I just felt like maybe it was nice to put it in your head once more. Anyway, when I'm in pain, if it's not very acute but still limits me to serve and dance and do a stronger yoga practice, something like this will be my go-to practice, or at least one of the sections. Move very carefully, move with attention, not necessarily look for solutions or look for a practice that I remember, but use my movement to see what does my body allow me to do and where can I find some new space? Where do I find relief? Add to this a breathing practice, add to this a meditation practice, drink lots of water, sleep your hours, laugh a lot, little less alcohol, drugs, coffee, healthy diet helps. Light in the diet, the lighter you are when you have back pain, the easier it feels. Mind your habits, the way you sit, the way you walk, the way you stand. Yeah, it will not go away. It will go away for a bit, it will come back, it will go away for a bit, it will come back. Pain is part of life. But if we lose the fear and we learn how to work with it, we're gonna have moments of ease. And maybe some of the pain comes and another moment of ease. It's not a big monster, it's something to work with. Yeah. So if you're in pain, don't give up. Okay. I think that's all for today and for this week. How did they say in YouTube? Subscribe, donate, like, share, all that. And I see you next week.